There's much debate as to which company will be the first to surpass the $1 trillion mark in terms of stock market value. The big bets are on Apple. Shares need to rise to $195.62. That's up 28% from where they are at the moment, roughly speaking. Current market cap is $792 billion. Now, at current valuations, Apple trades at 16 times estimated forward earnings. This current level of earnings is around $9 per share. To reach the $1 trillion mark, the figure would need to rise to $12. Now, this is not an insurmountable challenge, but it will take time, doubtless, to achieve. Ben Kumar joins us now from Seven Investment Management. Ben, welcome. Is Apple still a good bet to be there first in your mind?
Well, it's interesting when you think about Apple because a lot of its really fast growth is now behind it. It hasn't come up with a new product yet that is going to let it expand exponentially once again. So there are a few companies where, that does seem to still be possible, whether it's Google, whether it's Amazon. They still have a little bit more potential to expand into new business areas. Apple hasn't managed to do that for quite some time.
Okay, I want to follow up, if I can, on the comparisons with the likes of Google and Amazon in just a minute. But so you're saying that basically Apple is resting on a glittering past, but we hear about new products, the watch, the TV, and we hear about research going to other areas as well. Surely they are looking to expand.
They are absolutely looking, but the problem is they haven't managed to yet. The watch was not the runaway success they thought it would be. The new wireless headphones they brought out with the previous iPhone, not the kind of runaway success that they thought it would be. The problem for Apple is that it's actually quite a mature company now. It makes products. We're not in the kind of cutting edge of technology. What it does is it makes a very good phone, but so do lots of other companies in the world, and the advantage of being the first mover is now long gone.
Talking about phones, it's interesting, I note, to see a survey undertaken in China recently. Yes, it was only 1,000 people, but my understanding is the local handset, I think it's called the Huawei, is more popular now than Apple, because we've got this recent release from Apple, this $1,000 phone that we've been hearing a lot about. And I understand as well that the recent operating system 11 update has had a second update that followed on very quickly to fix poor performance bugs. It certainly seems like Apple's taking their focus off the ball. In terms of phones, let's take a look at that, because we got this recent release. Is there indication in your mind that this is not going to be the big transforming next generation phone that maybe Apple thought it might have been?
I think that's absolutely correct. You look at the phone and it is very clearly a tweaked update on the old version. And lots of other companies are doing exactly the same thing around the world. The next phone you get out will have a slightly better camera, improved screen, perhaps an extra functionality on the system, but there's nothing really game-changing. The problem is for Apple that it relies on its phone. When you look at the other big phone providers, whether it's in China, whether it's Samsung, they also have other strings to their business, whether it's industrial machinery or whether it's just other parts of tech. Apple hasn't got that.
So going back to the other competing companies here, Android or Google as it is, of course, and Amazon, what is it that they're doing that Apple could learn from, or is Apple really still the market leader in technology like this?
Well, Apple, I think it's fair to say it is still the market leader, but unfortunately Amazon and Google are coming from a background where they were not the market leader in anything, but they expand into those regions, and they do it with a fair bit of style, and they do it by acquisition. Right? So Google potentially buying HTC, that's something that they can look at and say, well, we want to get into phones, so what are we going to do? We're going to buy a phone company first of all. Apple is not really ever going to be able to say, oh, okay, we're going to go and buy a car company or a search engine. That's just not how the company's functioned. It's too vertically integrated to say, well, okay, maybe we can go and acquire our way into growth.
Tim Cook, of course, came to the job on the tragic loss of the company of Steve Jobs. He was an internal man. Do you think it's time to get an external person in, possibly someone from Amazon or Android, to come in and give Apple the boot?
Well, the thing with Tim Cook, he came into the job and everyone was pretty sceptical. He has done a fantastic job of delivering since Steve Jobs. Whether you think it will be someone external come in to recreate the atmosphere that there is at Google or Amazon, I'm not sure that's the problem. You had Steve Jobs and Jonathan Ives were the guys who created Apple and drove it forward. they're gone now. Or Jonathan Ives is certainly stepping back from the design world in a way we haven't seen before. So I think for Apple, you need to change the whole business structure. It might be that Tim Cook's the man to do that and say, look, we need to look elsewhere when we're thinking about product, when we're thinking about how we want to involve ourselves in people's lives. The idea that they're looking at, driving technology is something that, I think is perhaps the way they need to be evolving, and to look at other products, into getting into people's homes in the way that Google and Amazon now have done.
Okay, going back to our opening question about whether or not Apple's going to be the first trillion-dollar company, assuming it is, how quickly potentially could it get there? I mean, on the basis that we've been talking about, it seems to me as though we're talking about a company that the bottom line is it's still a one-trick pony.
Exactly right. So a 30% rise in shares from here is basically what you need to get up to $1 trillion. I'm not convinced that that kind of growth is necessarily forthcoming over the next year or so. But, Apple's got a long time. It's got a big lead on its competitors, about $300 million ahead of the next largest company. There's a long time for $300 billion ahead, rather. There's a long time for it to, grow those earnings from $9, as you said, up to $12. Perhaps it can do it over the next 2 to 3 years. And, few companies stand a chance of catching it.
Okay, all right, Ben, we'll leave it there. But thanks indeed for joining us with your thoughts on Apple. Ben Kumar there from 7 Investment Management, talking about Apple and the potential for the business or otherwise to get to that magical $1 trillion mark. Could it be first at that big milestone?